Ascribe, and I'm going to be walking through the Codebook toolbar today in Ascribe Coder. I always start out with a little PowerPoint presentation, but before I begin, just to let you know, everyone is muted as we go through these presentations. If you have a question or a suggestion or something comes up as we're going through this presentation or as I'm demoing the software, please feel free to send a chat and Julie will answer it, or ask me to answer it, and at the end we will have quite a bit of time for question and answer. Julie, you are unmuted, so okay, thank you. Cool, thanks, Julie. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. There we go. Again, this is Ascribe Coder webinar, and my name is Laura Rice, and I like to get started by talking about Ascribe Coder, the modernized version of Ascribe Coder, so that we're all on the same page. I know many of you have seen this before, but there's a few new people in this group, so we need to go through it. Ascribe Coder was released on September 20th of 2013. It is currently available on the live server. It is fully functioning, and you can use it for coding today, and I encourage you to use it for coding today. Ascribe Coder was created to merge the functionality of 4 pages, the review responses page, the single response coder interface, and edit the codebook. And then also Codebook Editor Preview, but we removed Codebook Editor Preview on September 20th when we released Ascribe Coder. That's why we have the strike through here. Ascribe Coder was developed with feedback from our user community. Oh, hold on. Julie's letting me know that my PowerPoint is not showing, so I probably should show my screen. There we are. So again, I'm down here on the developed using Ascribe community feedback. So when the development team sat down to rewrite Ascribe Coder, they took our support maintained user wish list and looked at everything that we had requested for review responses, the single response coder interface, and edit the codebook, and also the Codebook Editor Preview. And they also took our user group feedback. And our development team's been working very closely with our users group to improve Ascribe Coder as we move forward. Ascribe Coder was also rewritten so that it was supported in multiple browsers. So you can use Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, or Safari on a Mac to access Ascribe Coder. Now, a question that comes up, I use Chrome, and you'll see my demo in Chrome. There are still tools in Ascribe that aren't supported in Chrome, Firefox, and Safari, and those tools are Review Responses, the Single Response Coder Interface, Edit the Codebook, and Phrase Analyzer. We'll talk a bit more about Phrase Analyzer in just a minute. Okay, so what's been going on with Ascribe Coder since September 20th? We've had a version 7.5 release where we improved quite a few things based on user feedback. User group feedback, feedback that came through support, and feedback that came through training sessions. So I'm not going to go through all of those updates. Rather, I'm going to jump right down to version 7.6 to talk about what to expect for Ascribe Coder in 2014. Version 7.6 will be introducing spell check for Ascribe Coder. That is tentatively scheduled for March of 2014. And then this is probably the most important thing. Version 8 of Ascribe is scheduled for, or tentatively scheduled for June of 2014. And that's when we'll see the removal of review responses, the removal of the single response coder interface, and removal of edit the codebook. So again, that is tentatively scheduled for June of 2014. All right? So one thing that I like to ask is, after you've attended the training sessions, and after you've, kind of gotten acclimated to Ascribe Coder, and you find yourself going into review responses or single response coder interface or edit the codebook, to note that and let us know. Either bring it to the users group, and the users group meets the second Wednesday of every month. And if you're interested in that, you can email myself, Julie, or support. Support's usually the easiest way to get into the users group, and attend those meetings, bring it there, or just even send the information to support. All right. Version 8.1, we're going to be introducing the new Ascribe Illustrator, and then in version 8.2, which is scheduled for August of 2014, we'll be seeing an updated version of Phrase Analyzer. So as I mentioned, Phrase Analyzer today is only available using IE. The updated Phrase Analyzer will be available, will be multi-browser compatible. Okay. Also, some of the desktop functionality will be moving into Ascribe in version 8.2, and then way far into October, we may see the removal of desktop and then some ACM updates. All right, so now I'm going to actually get into the demo. Again, today I am going to be focusing on the Codebook toolbar. I'm going to navigate the Supervisor Studies. Right-click on my study and choose Questions. And I'm going to actually navigate into Q7 and choose Ascribe Coder. All right, so when we first navigate into Ascribe Coder, just a general layout, you'll see your codebook over on the right side of the screen. It's very similar to what we see in review responses. Our nets are in bold, and our codes are in regular font beneath our nets, indented under our nets. Above the codebook, we do see our codebook toolbar. This will be what I'll be focusing on today. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see your question information. And I believe when you first log in, you see something kind of like this. But you can take the resizer bar and resize that question pane. You can leave this open, or you have the option to hit the toggle button and minimize your question information. The left side of the screen is the response pane. I won't be spending much time here today. I'll be focused more on the codebook side of things, but during the question and answer session at the end, we can answer some questions about the response pane. Again, I've covered most of the toolbars in the response pane and how to code and all of that good stuff in previous webinars. I will be scheduling more webinars for March, and we will be publishing those previous webinars, the recordings of those, as soon as possible. All right, so above the response pane, we have our response toolbar. To the right of it, we have our multiple response mode and our single response mode. Most of these webinars I'm focused on multiple response mode, but I will be doing a single response mode webinar in March. And then the final thing to talk about before we get to the Codebook toolbar is our navigation icon. So as we rewrite Ascribe, as Ascribe is being rewritten and being made multi-browser compatible, we're kind of updating the look and feel of Ascribe as well. And one of the things that we're doing is adding these navigation icons so that you can right-click on the icon and get to any other area of Ascribe. The right-click menus, right-click navigation menus, are no longer in play in Ascribe Coder. So to leave Ascribe Coder, you will need to know about the navigation icon and be able to click on the navigation icon to get back out to questions or go to Supervisor Studies or wherever you want to go. All right, so the task at hand is to talk about the Codebook toolbar. And I should say that when you're editing the codebook, you do have the option, we can resize between the response and the codebook panes, but we also have the option to completely minimize the response pane and just bring our codebook up if we like. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as if we were coding as well, and talk about the Codebook toolbar. There we go. Okay, so the tools that I'm going to talk about, the first one here, well, I should say something about the lock. When we're coding in Ascribe, we keep our codebook locked. And when the codebook is locked, I've talked about this in previous webinars, but when the codebook is locked, we can actually edit our codes. So we can edit the property of our codes, or we can add new codes, right? So I could insert a new code here when the codebook is locked. I can also delete unused codes when the codebook is locked. Users with coder privilege, just coder privileges, users that only have coder privilege is what I should say, users without supervisor privilege, cannot unlock the codebook. Okay? These tools can be used with the codebook locked. All right? The first tool I'm going to talk about is the search tool. And what the search tool does, and I have it minimized right now, what the search tool does is it allows us to search our codes or our code book. So for instance, if I want to find all of my codes that have the word other in it, I can toggle on Find All Codes, or Find All, and it'll bring up the codes only, and it's going to bring up all of my codes that have other in it. Okay? I can apply codes from here, do whatever I need with these codes that I've brought up. All right? To cancel that search, I just close my search code book. So search code book, I search for a code, and maybe I want to search for eliminates. And hit go. It brings up my codes with eliminate in them. I do whatever I need to do with those codes. Maybe I need to edit the properties. Maybe I need to apply the code. Whatever it is I need to do, I hit the X, and it brings back my entire code book. Okay, so this find in the code book, we also have the option to replace in the code book, and this is helpful for those times where I know some of our clients put a little asterisks in front of codes that are added, new codes, but they might need to go through and replace all those, so they can go through and do that and replace them using the replace in description item or tool. Another thing that we can do, the search, we can actually minimize it, and if you minimize it and say you always want it to live right up here, you can do that, and then when you click on it, it'll always appear there. And just to show you how that works, when you click on it, it'll always appear where you last left it. So you can park this little guy anywhere for searching your code book, and you know, set it up the way you want it to. All right, so that's the search in code book. The next option is our print option, and the print option allows us to export our code book in either, well, there's a number of formats: indented plain text, indented formatted text, tabular plain or formatted text, an Excel spreadsheet, a Word document, or a Word document for all code books in the study. Okay, so you can choose, and what you export depends on your settings. So if I want to export my output ID and my code text and my counts and percentages, it depends on what I'm showing as to what will be exported. In this case, everything I'm showing will be exported, and I can export to an Excel spreadsheet and hit OK, and it'll export just this code book. There we go. And then I can open it up. And you'll see that it tells me the level, whether it's a net or not, the output ID, the description, and the count. I can move this over so it looks a little counts and percentages. Okay. One of the cool things about the print, or one of the things that's kind of new, is this ability to print all of our code books, all the code books in the study, to a Word document. If I do that, it allows me to quickly spell check all of the code books in my study. Now, one of the questions that comes up here whenever I talk about this is whether we can just export the open ends. Not an option yet, but it is something that we've got on our wish list, the ability to just export for open ends, to make it easier for us to spell check until we get the server-side spell check tool. Okay, so that's print. The next item on our toolbar is our settings. And the settings, I really like the way we do the settings in Ascribe Coder, because, and you know what, I should have said this. I'll get back to settings in just a second. Someone asked, and I should have addressed this. Someone asked if they print a shared code book, does it show up multiple times? And the answer is it only shows up once in your document. So if I export a Word document for all of my code books, my shared code book, just a second, will only come up once. well, problem with the command. I don't know what that means. This worked earlier today. But so the shared codebook will come up once, and you'll have, and Julie might have to help me out with this for a second. From what I understand, so I've got a shared codebook in here, and it is Q7 or Q11. So I'm going to scroll on down to my Q11. Should be the next. Where are you, Q11? Here you are. So in my Q11, you'll notice that it tells me I've got Q11, Q11 under bar 1 through Q11 under bar 6. And all of these guys are in red. What that means is that I'm seeing the count and percentage for all of those guys. Okay? So if I were on an individual, if I were just in Q11 and I wasn't showing from shared codebooks, from what I understand, Q11 would show in red and the rest would show in black, and the counts would be just for Q11. Is that correct, Julie?
Yes, that's
how that works.
Absolutely correct.
Okay, great. Okay, so when you print out and you've got a shared codebook, if you see all of the questions in red, that means your counts and percentages are for all the questions from the shared codebook. Okay, does that answer that question that came up, Julie?
Yes, yes it does.
Okay,
thank you.
Cool, thank you. Okay, cool. So now to get into settings, and I did mean to say that prior to getting into settings, that came up this morning as well. So in the settings, and I was just saying that one of the cool things about our settings in Ascribe Coder is that as we turn on the settings, they're instant. So they're kind of interactive. So we can see what that setting is going to do. Okay? The first tab in our settings is the Show tab. And this tab affects whether the codebook, these things are in effect, whether the codebook is locked or unlocked. Okay? So I'm showing my output ID, and I'm showing my counts. I could be showing my regular expressions if I wanted to. And you'll notice that we've got a box for codes, and we have a box for nets. So if I want my output ID for my nets, or I don't want my output ID for my nets showing, then I'll toggle off output ID for nets, and it will not show. Okay? If I want to show my hover help, I can show my hover help, and you see I've got some fancy hover help going on in here for some of these codes. And you might ask, what is hover help? Hover help is in our code properties box, and it's the information that will hover, or the information that's available from just hovering over the code. Some of our customers will put help for coders in the hover help area. Okay, so that's the hover help. All right, so that's the Show tab. The When Locked tab, we've got a Show box, so we can show our borders if we like. That's our prerogative, whether we want to do that or not. We can show a selection checkbox, and this selection checkbox is actually becoming something that people are, those of us that are afraid we're going to inadvertently select a code or select a response might want to turn on the selection checkbox. The selection checkbox makes us click the checkbox to select a code, okay, rather than trying to click outside of, to the left or right of the code. We have to actually click on the checkbox to select the code. That same option is available over on the response side of the screen. The information button is just information about the code. We can get to it by right-clicking and hitting information, or we can click the information button, and it'll bring up information about that particular code. And the information is all of the properties of the code, and then where that code is used, which studies it's used in, which questions, how many times it's been applied, the percent of the responses coded, the percent of the total responses, the percent of the responses coded, and then the percent of the respondents. Okay, so at any time we can get that information about our codes. That's the information button. And that's when locked. The codes only viewed allows us to actually look at our code book, or code, I should say. It allows us to code. Remember, this is just when it's locked. It allows us to view our code book without the nets in alpha order. So we hide the nets, show the code book, in this case in alpha order, or we could show it in the order that we created our codes, code book order. We could show it in output ID order. So we have a few few selections here. We could even show our codebook by frequency if we like. Okay, this is just a view. We're not changing the structure of the codebook. We're only changing the view of the codebook. One thing to point out, if you're using this mode, is that the codebook node at the top that tells you how many have been coded out of how many in the %, that's actually not showing when we do our codes only view. Okay, this allows us to mimic, this is a request that we had for years that allows us to mimic the phrase analyzer. You know, in phrase analyzer, when we go in, it automatically sorts our codes alphabetically and hides our nets. And it's something that we've always wanted to be able to do in review responses. Okay, so that's our show codes only view. So now let's talk a little bit about when the codebook is unlocked. We've gone over, you know, in previous sessions I've gone over how to manipulate the codebook. But when it's unlocked, there's only a few things we can do or we can change. We can remove our move handle. The move handle, remember, lets us move a code from one place to another, one at a time. Okay, so we can turn that off if we're not fond of that. Or we can turn on direct edit mode. And direct edit mode just actually lets us edit any aspect of the code that we're showing on the screen. So when we're direct edit mode, whatever we're showing on the screen, we can edit. For instance, if I turn on my regular expressions, I can now edit my regular expressions. Everything becomes editable that's showing when we're in direct edit mode. Okay, so that's that. When unlocked. One other tab, that's our appearance tab, and basically that allows us to change the font or the size of the font for our codebook. And that's that. So those are our settings. All right. Now on to our summary. In the summary level, we have this available in the single response coder interface where we can actually summarize the codebook to nets and subnets. And if I want to show just my control subnet, then I click on control subnet, and that's all that's being displayed. And this is the regular expressions drive me crazy. So that's all that's being displayed now is my control subnet. If I want to expand my whole codebook, then I just control-click on the little arrow beside the codebook node. Okay, that was something that threw me through a loop this morning. I had forgotten that. So again, you control-click to expand the whole codebook. All right. Again, so this is helpful when we have a pos, negative, neutral codebook. Maybe we want to just see our positive codes, just their negative codes, or just our neutral codes. But again, it just lets us kind of flop around in our codebook from net to net, just expanding what we've clicked on. And to bring them all back, control-click, and there we go. It's all expanded. All right. And again, that's the summary. And the final tool in our toolbar is our codebook tools. And our codebook tools give us access to some information about our codes. The first one is our expressions list. And really, it just lists the codes that have expressions. And if we click on a code, and I've got this thing very large today. There we go. And if we click on a code, you'll notice that it flashes yellow. So if I wanted to edit that expression, I would right-click on it and choose code properties, and then I could edit the properties of that code. I could edit the expression. All right, so that's my expression list. I can export my expression list to Excel if I like. So if someone wants to see, you know, hey, I see you use expressions. Can you teach me how to do that? You can output your expression and say, here you go. This is what I do. Okay. The next tab is my duplicates list, and my duplicates list is kind of cool in that it will check my codes for duplicates. So, or check my codebook for duplicates, I should say. So if I type in straightens hair, and I spell it correctly, and I hit OK, and I open up my codebook tools, notice immediately that my duplicates tab is highlighted yellow, and then in the duplicates tab, if I click on the duplicates tab, it's telling me that I have a duplicate description. So my codebook tools will check my codebook for duplicate input IDs, output IDs, code IDs, descriptions, or regular expressions. When I click on the description tab, it shows me that I have 2 straightens hair codes. I click on this one and it brings up the first one. It's been used, so I'll probably leave that one. It brings up the second one. That one hasn't been used, so what I can do is right-click on it and delete it. If they had both been used, then I would have needed to swap one for the other and then delete the other. Okay, so that's our duplicates list. If I hit update, we're all clear now. And the final tab here is my usage tab. And what this does is it shows us a top-line report for my codes. I shouldn't say top-line report because the nets aren't here. It actually just shows me where my code, or it gives me counts and percentages for the codes that have been used. Okay? And that's my usage tab. This one can actually be put out, exported into Excel. Okay? So that's everything in our Codebook toolbar. This morning I was asked to show again how you manipulate a codebook, how you move codes around in a codebook, and I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to unlock the codebook and talk about that. So when the codebook is unlocked, we're actually saying we want to make some structural changes to the codebook. We want to make some changes that maybe a coder wouldn't be making. And what I can do, and notice that as I select codes, a couple things happen. I've selected 3 codes, and now these 4 tools have lit up. Okay, so I can take if these codes are unused, I can hit delete, and it'll tell me what's going to be deleted. I'm not going to do that now. I can hit color and change the color of my codes if I like. I can hit the change case icon and change the case of my codes, or I could renumber my codes. Okay? But in this case, what I want to do is move these 3 guys. So I've selected them, and what I'm going to do is move them. Perhaps I'll move them under appearance to hair. I'll move them under code 201. So I select the codes that I'd like to move. I right-click on the code that I'd like to move them beneath, and then I choose Move Selection Below. Okay? So I've now got the freedom to select codes from anywhere in my code book and move them together in one place. This is really helpful if you've got a straight list that you need to net. I was asked this morning to show how to create a net, and you create a net just like you create a code, only you toggle on the net icon, or the net option, not icon, option. There we go. Net option is on. Boom, I have a new net. And that's funny. I didn't bring my move handle back. I'm like, where's my move handle? I can move my net wherever I want to move him. If I want him at the same level, you'll notice that he's going to move the same level as my efficacy net. There we are. And I could move individual codes beneath him, or I could select a couple of codes and say right-click, move selection into, and I've moved those guys. Okay, so I'll go ahead and open the floor now for questions. Julie, have any questions come up?
No questions right now, but if anybody wants to type a question in the chat box, we'll be glad to answer it.
Yeah, if there's anything, any questions at all about Ascribe Coder, do we have a few more minutes? Yes, we've got 15 minutes for questions and answers if you have any questions. Julie, was there anything else that that came up this morning that I didn't cover that we might want to cover?
Okay, we have a question. How do we see the responses that were coded with a certain code?
Oh, okay. So let's say we want to see the responses that were coded with eliminate static. What I will do is highlight eliminate static. You know, it tells me up here that I've got one code selected. I'll highlight that. I'll right-click on it and hit Search Any. and it's going to bring up all of my responses that have eliminate static applied. Okay? Now, if I want to see my responses that have eliminate static or controls frizziness, then what I'll do is select both of them and right-click and hit Search Any. And now I've got 8 responses. You see it tells me at the top here I'm showing 8 responses. And these 8 responses either have controls frizziness or eliminate static. Okay? I can also hit Search All. And when I hit Search All, it's going to just show me those responses that have both controls frizziness and eliminate static applied. So that's how we would return responses that had a certain code applied. Does that answer that one, Julie?
Yes, that does. And then the person asks, is there a way to see the responses without the codes under them?
Well, there's a scripted output that would output the verbatims for you without the codes under them. But in this window, I don't think we have the option to turn the codes off, do we? I don't think so.
No. I
was going to say, you've always got the code description.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be, I'm interested in knowing why someone would want that. That's something you can send to us at support. And what we can do is help you with a special scripted output. Okay. Any other questions? I see there's a hand raised. What does that mean? Maybe not. Okay. Well, guys, what I'll tell you, again, I'll repeat what I said earlier, that as you get into Ascribe Coder, you know, anytime that you find yourself having to go into review responses or the single response coder interface or edit the codebook, you know, let us know. And we may have already addressed it. There might be something in Ascribe Coder that addresses it, or it might be something that we need to discuss with the development team. Because our goal is that, you know, that you're more productive with Ascribe Coder than you are in review responses in a single response coder interface by June.
Laura, we did have one more question. Can you go over how to renumber an entire code book?
I can, but I'm going to have to go into Internet Explorer to do that. But basically, I'll go through the steps here. There's currently an issue that came up with our last patch with Chrome that needs to be fixed with a patch, hopefully soon. But to renumber a whole code book, you would have to unlock the code book. You would want to right-click, select Descendants All. Okay? And you would choose Renumber, and then you would choose your renumbering options, however you'd like to renumber it. Okay? And then you'd hit Renumber when you were finished. So if I wanted to renumber these starting with 1 in increments of 1, I would renumber. If I just wanted to renumber my codes, then what I would want to do is right-click, select Descendants Codes, and renumber just my codes. If I wanted to renumber, so then I'd hit Renumber and put in, you know, and hit Renumber. If I wanted to renumber just my nets, same thing, deselect all, right-click, select Descendants Nets, and renumber just my nets. So this is different. It's different than what we're used to. We used to just be able to, let me just deselect all, right-click and say renumber, right? But what we had asked for was the ability to more control over what we renumbered, the ability to select individual codes or responses, and individual codes and nets, and renumber just what we selected. So to do that, so now notice when I select codes, these things become available. These tools become available. Okay, so we've been given more freedom in what we renumber, but we do have to select the things we want to renumber first.
So Laura, just to dovetail off what you said, somebody said, what if I want to renumber just a designated selection? And so that's what you were showing, that you just select the codes or the nets where you have the ability to just select those areas that you want renumbered.
And you'll notice when you click on a net, right, you get this option to select siblings or select descendants. And then you get a lot of different options for selecting. You can select all the descendants. You can select the codes. So I'm on miscellaneous efficacy. So we've got a lot of selection options when we click on something. So let me just go up here and deselect all. And then I right-click on my efficacy net, and I've got select siblings, which would select, well, I'll show you what select siblings would do. Oh, select all siblings. So notice it selects everything that's at efficacy net's level. Okay? And it's kind of the same, deselect all. But you can go in. I would suggest you go in and you kind of do the right-click menu and really see what it's selecting and unselecting. It's kind of cool. If you want to renumber just your or if you want to get rid of your unused codes, you can go through and get rid of your unused codes, and so on and so forth. Okay. Was there another question, Julie?
No. Somebody was making a suggestion that there's a confirmation that nothing will be renumbered if it's not selected. But I'm not sure that that's, not more cumbersome.
Oh, yeah, yeah, nothing will be renumbered. If it's not selected, it will not be renumbered. I mean, that's the way the program works. It has to be selected to be renumbered.
Okay, I think that answers that.
Good. Okay. Great. Cool. All right. Well, there are a few more minutes if anybody else has any questions or needs to see something else. All right. Okay, well, if something else comes up, please email support@languagelogic.net, and we'll take care of your questions, issues. If there's something you especially like and you just want to give kudos, you can send those too. Those are nice to hear. But yeah, thank you so much for your time today, and I hope to see you in a future webinar.